Hello, Earthlings! It's Jazz Camp time again, and that means vlog. As of now, when I'm recording this, it hasn't begun yet. I thought I'd make a few predictions as to how I think it'll go, and then see if they're right. Basically, the thing is, as happens to many campers, there are a lot of classes I want to take, and not enough blocks to do them all. The worst part of that, I mean, it's a first world problem, but the worst part of that is that the two I most really want to take happen at the exact same time. Anyway, let's cut to home, hopefully with better hair. So basically, there was a class I did last year that I really want to do again this year, called Reimagining Iconic Songs of the 70s and 80s, taught by Julie Wolfe, my #1 fan. I don't say that to brag or anything. It was just unexpected that I made a fan at jazz camp, let alone of a faculty member, because that's not how it works. The campers are supposed to be... The campers aren't just a mix of ages, we're also a mix of pros and amateurs. The staff, of course, are all pros, so, you know, it seems like the natural thing should be us becoming a fan of them, but, and, you know, you don't go to jazz camp to make fans, you go to make friends, but, I guess I ended up with both. Anyway, that's a long explanation for a short joke. Basically, that class conflicts with the piano intensive, which I was also in last year, and really want to do again this year, because I, as usual, really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's the main thing. Also, there's another class during that period which I'm also kind of interested in, called The Singing Drummer. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's about singing and playing drums at the same time. There are a few other conflicts, like there's a guitar class in the morning that I really want to take. Fortunately, there's also a guitar class in the afternoon that I wouldn't mind taking instead. But the one in the morning conflicts with an advanced jazz theory class, and it's taught by a different... This year it's being taught by Michael Golds instead of Glenn Pearson, who used to teach it in the past. I'm also intrigued to see how Michael teaches it differently. I can already smell him teaching... I can see his methods being a bit different from Glenn's already. Anyway, let's cut to whatever we're about to cut to and see what happens. Alright, so rather than going through the week in chronological order, I'm going to go it from the biggest low to the biggest high. Okay, so this first point is probably going to break a lot of hearts, but I guess it's important that you hear it, and I wouldn't say this if I didn't love you all, you being my jazz camp family. So my biggest low was actually during the advanced vocal ensemble's performance on the last Saturday. Of course, their vocals were top-notch as per usual, and we have Christine Guter to thank for that as per usual. But the lyrics got under my skin. They were singing a Christianized version of Biggest Part of Me by Ambrosia. To be fair, it was a take 6 arrangement, but the attempt to crowbar God, it's not the God so much as the crowbarring that did it for me. The attempt to crowbar God into that song, which is it's just an innocuous little classic love song, ended up changing the melody on the chorus of all places. For those who aren't familiar with the song, the chorus begins, "Make a wish, baby!" And this version just got rid of the word baby, leaving a gap in place of a high note. And that gap, combined with a few bowdlerized lyrics elsewhere to make the song more God-friendly, made the lyrics sound a little less authentic, and made it hard for me to sit through the song not once but twice. The advanced vocal ensemble actually performed it twice, exquisitely, but twice. And everyone else managed to love it, but I couldn't actually find much of the jazz camp spirit in it. And well, to me, the jazz camp spirit is a kind of warm, fuzzy, intimate, and sometimes romantic love. Kind of like the original line from the song, all I want to do is hold her. And this version changed it to all I want to do is serve him, which makes the relationship more distant, more of a master-servant type thing, which doesn't really say jazz camp to me. Anyway, that was my lowest point by far. The other lows pale in comparison to it. They're just basically minor regrets. One, I wish I could have gotten to know Ingrid Jensen, the artist in residence. Everything she did, it was always fun to witness everything she did, not just as a musician, but as a person. So if you're watching this, Ingrid, come back again. If you're watching this, Allison Miller, our artistic director, get her back again. Another regret is that I couldn't simultaneously take Michael Gold's theory class and a blues guitar class taught by Terrence Brewer. So I settled for the latter because I brought my guitar with me. But the former really seemed like a lot of fun. I heard they analyzed McCoy Tyner's Passion Dance solo. Also, I didn't get into the piano intensive, but I don't mind that at all because it ended up making me take my two favorite classes of this year, which I'll get to later. So as usually happens at jazz camp, there were too many highs during the week to properly rank them all, but here are a few. One was at Ohlone Bowl, the place we go on Wednesday, which is the day our executive director and life source Stacy Hoffman reminds us every year is a pretty emotional day. So instead of eating dinner in the dining hall followed by a faculty concert in the main amphitheater. This is at YMCA Camp Jones Gulch, by the way. Instead of eating in the dining hall and then going to the main amphitheater to see the faculty play, we hike up to a sacred Native American space, not just Ohlone, and we do both of those things there in the real world by the light of a campfire. And this year, Ohlone Bowl opened with a dance honoring the four classical elements, which then merged together to form art. It was easier to witness than to describe, but basically there were four dancers for each of the four elements: fire, air, water, earth. Not necessarily in that order, I think. Fire was definitely not first. I think it was water, fire, air, earth, or water, air, fire, earth. And then there was a fifth dancer representing art, which is the ultimate synthesis of the four elements. There's always stuff that happens at Ohlone Bowl that the rest of jazz camp is just too shallow to contain. It was also funny during the beginning of the for want of a better word, spectacle. It was also funny to see Allison Miller's toddler son keep running out to join the proceedings. It seemed like the only people who could keep up with him were two of our many backbones, Juvino Santos Neto and Art Lande, who began chasing him in the middle of their melodica duet. They'll also come up later in this video too. Two other highlights both involved me performing Dr. John songs. Just by coincidence, they were the only two performances I did in the daytime. I also played a bit in the jam sessions, which happen after the faculty concert in the dining hall. But there's an open mic that happens every day after the last block of classes. I sang I Walk on Gilded Splinters for my open mic performance. I'm gonna upload the video of that soon, so look forward to that. By the way, I want to thank Kanoa Mendenhall, who played bass on it. I met her last year when she accompanied the piano intensive. And also Marla Starla for playing harmonica on it. It was just us three. Fortunately, that was not the only Dr. John tribute performed at jazz camp. Anna Wazo also sang Such a Night for the final lunch on Saturday, and I played melodica on that. I'm actually a real newbie to the Dr. John fandom. I kind of knew who he was for a long time, but I didn't really start to get into his music until he died, which was only a few weeks before jazz camp.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna fold in some Sid. Ready, go Sid.
Then there was a class taught by Natalie Cressman, another backbone of jazz camp. In fact, she's one of a family of backbones. It's in her bones to be a backbone, and she plays the trombone. Anyway, this class was called Modern Jazz Singing, Being a Stylistic Chameleon. Basically, in that class, we talked about and tried out some stylistic changes and reharmonizations of jazz and pop songs like Moon River. We looked at Jacob Collier's version of that. Also Hallelujah, and even Peter Gabriel's Mercy Street. Actually, one song I brought in was XTC's Senses Working Overtime. She had me try something I never thought of doing with it, which was singing the verse rubato, like slow and freely, and it really worked. And I was really surprised by it. It was like, wow, I never thought of this before, and it brings out the lyrics in a way I didn't really think of. Now on to my two favorite classes. So the last class I had before lunch was Julie Wolfe's class that I mentioned before, reimagining iconic songs of the 70s and 80s. And basically, every day in that class we would jam out to one song for most of the whole period, with a few stylistic changes thrown in here and there. And my favorite moment from camp this year happened on Monday when we tackled Fleetwood Mac's Dreams. We started out playing it pretty much straight, but somehow, some way, we eventually settled into a kind of Brazilian pop groove. And I was playing synth bass because there was no bassist, and I was playing this really busy line, but we had to come down for a quiet instrument to take a solo. It may have been violin, it may have been vibes. Either way, I took out a few notes, the parts of the line where I didn't quite know what I was doing, and suddenly I was left with this. I was like, whoa, this is a hip bass line. I could play this for hours. And so I did. But the ultimate Jazz Camp West highlight has to be Art Lande. He and Givino Santos Neto are two prime examples of people who don't so much play music as speak music, embody music, live and breathe music. So the song you saw them play in that last clip was All the Things You Are in 5/4. And what I didn't film was the last chorus, where for the A section they just played random notes like this. But you could almost hear them thinking. And the instruments they were playing also kind of perfectly represent the different ways music flows through them. Like Givino was playing the acoustic piano, which perfectly matches his flowing, polished spontaneity, while Art was on the Rhodes piano, which kind of mirrors his raw, clunky, occasionally cheeky beingness. And this year, just like my first jazz camp, I took Art's duo improvisation class. And it was actually right before Julie's class, and I ended up taking some of the things I learned in his class and applying them to hers. One of those things was the difference between being a speaker and being an environment. We each practiced being a speaker in one duet and then an environment in the next one. The environment doesn't react to the speaker at all, like the trees and the houses behind me. They're just there. We also learned about the 4 ways you can respond to a stimulus. You can match it, complement it, go against it, or just mind your own business. And that's basically life in a nutshell. I'm stealing this metaphor from Art, but if someone's painting your living room wall, you can paint it with them, you can hold the ladder for them to stand on, you can steal the ladder, steal the paint, steal the brush, yell mean things at them, hold the ladder but rock it, just do everything in your power to distract them. Or you can just go in the kitchen, make a sandwich, read a book, and be aware of them but not interacting. Finally, there are some classes that I'm hoping to take next year or in the near future that are Jazz Camp West staples, but I've never taken in all my 7 years coming. One of them is the advanced vocal ensemble, who always gives a killer performance at the very end of the Saturday morning concert. No matter what anyone thinks of the song selection, they always do an amazing job, for want of a better word. Another is Mark Rosenthal's steel drum class, and he teaches 2 of those, so it shouldn't be hard to find one or the other. Another is I want to take one of the dance classes. Dance is also an integral part of Jazz Camp West. And this year, especially, all of the dancers were on point. I also want to start singing in the all-camp gospel choir once again. I've sung in it before, but I want to start singing in it again. It's directed by none other than Terrence Kelly, the leader of the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir. I'm also really interested in the gospel ensemble, which is like the choir, but smaller and sings slightly more complex pieces. Finally, I also want to see you there, you who's watching this and has never been. It's the last week of June, jazzcampwest.org. There's also a version of it for young teens. Older teens are eligible for Jazz Camp, but younger teens can go to Jam Camp West, which is a version of that at the end of July. So yeah, look forward to my open mic video, and until we meet again, go forth and live some jazz.